parties, going back to the APSA Committee on Parties in the 1950s, a couple of things have happened. One is our parties have become much more polarized, so that rather than having overlapping and pragmatic and heterogeneous parties of the kind we always have traditionally had, we now have two clearly distinguished and much more internally coherent parties, which, in my view, is really a bad fit for our diverse and pluralistic republic, thing one. The other thing that's happened coincident with that polarization has been the nationalization of our politics. And so the political fights we're having all are taking place in what I have taken to be calling the Thunderdome of American politics. And what we've really lost sight of is what's happening in particular communities and states and localities, which are really different and have different needs and circumstances. And I think it's worth noting where the vast majority of governing occurs in the United States. So if you look at all the things that really matter for people's lives, schools, roads, transit, housing, public health, those are all local and state matters, not so much federal matters. And so I think what we need to do with our parties is to decentralize them. And I think that we've often looked at parties and how do we depolarize them? I've become increasingly convinced as the way to depolarize our parties is to denationalize them, to decentralize them, to try and breathe life back into the local and state party organizations that to flourish really do need to be attentive to what the unique circumstances of their particular geographies have. And so part of what we're trying to do under parties is to kind of support scholars and others who are thinking about that revitalization of party organizations. I think another thing we're trying to do to bring more pluralism to the party system is to notice, observe, reflect on, and lift up people who are really creatively building factions within the party to kind of break out of the coherent lockstep that partisans have fallen in both the Republican and Democratic side of things. So, some of our partners here are really interesting and robust people in the Democratic Party that are trying to make it a big tent Democratic Party and appeal to centrists and moderates and independents and even disaffected Republican voters that the most prominent ideological part of the Democratic Party is no longer really in a position to speak to. I think a big tent Democratic Party would be a really good thing for our democracy. Likewise, I'm working with and supporting people in the Republican Party that are trying, in effect, to do the same thing within the Republican Party. So the decentralization and the support for kind of factional elbow room within the parties, I think those are a couple of promising developments.